You're on mute.
I'm recording now.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I'm off mute. I'm recording now.
So, as we talked about this the last 2 times, this is a 3-part series, the Mind Mattered series, where we're talking about how important mental health is when it comes to managing our feelings, coping with things, as well as I think in the field of dyslexia, we don't really think about learning disability. We don't really think about mental health much because we spend so much time talking about techniques and, how can we read better? Or how can we do something better? We don't really think about, okay, what's my brain feeling like today? Or what's my, on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I on my burnout level? I think eventually there will be a series on burnout. So we will talk about that a little bit more, but then just to talk about it now, we don't address mental health that much. We don't talk about how much stress impacts our work from one day to the other. Dates are hard, reading is hard. If you're stressed, reading is a little bit harder than when you're not stressed. So just to specify the fact that we do want to say that mental health is important as well. We need to focus on that as well. So, as most of you know me by now, my name is Malvika. I am a licensed professional counselor in Texas. I'm also a school counselor in Ohio. I've been in the field of counseling since 2013. I've worked with adults, children, and I've been working in the field of learning disabilities and researching learning disabilities since about 2018, 2019. So our 3-part series was about thoughts, emotions, and now we're finally catching up with behavior and actions. So I do want to mention this. We're doing these groups as psychoeducational groups. We're trying to learn as much as possible as we can. And we're trying to identify what might work for us, what might not work for us. So I want to address cognitive behavioral therapy as a whole this session. And I want to address the fact that cognitive behavioral therapy specifically talks about how our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are correlated. So how we think affects how we feel and act. How we feel affects how we think and act, and what we do affects how we think and feel. And I'll give you a couple of examples as we go around, but as I've given this example before, when we wake up all happy, something goes wrong, and then we start thinking, well, this day is not it's just gonna keep getting worse. And then, eventually if the day keeps getting worse, you're looking at the day and going, well, I knew it. I knew my day would just not get better. Versus, okay, one bad thing happened that won't impact my entire day. And I'll make sure that the rest of the day is better. And then you change the thought process, you change the behavior. So what are behaviors? Behaviors are responses to a situation. They include actions, such as saying something, doing something, or choosing not to do something. We talked about validation a lot in our last session, but I think one thing that we did not really address is not wanting to do something. There are a lot of options, a lot of ways of doing something. Today we were watching an episode of Bluey, and we saw the fact that they went on vacation and the mom wanted to go to the beach and she wanted to rest. And she could not rest at the beach. She just could not calm down. She couldn't rest, she couldn't relax. So she came back and she said, well, I just can't relax. That's just not working out for me. So she identified and said it's not happening. So instead of relaxing at the beach, she just went and relaxed on the patio while the kids were around her and playing with her. Sometimes I feel the bluey parents are better parents than I am. Sometimes. They have a lot more patience than I do. So a lot of times when you think about when in that specific situation, the mom identified the fact that, hey, I have this issue. I'm not able to relax. Let me just go figure out what else I can do. So here's what we're talking about when we talk about situations, thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So let's say you're beating yourself about something you said in a conversation. So basically we said something and now we're overthinking the entire situation. And our thought is, let's go with the spiraling negative thought that we might have. Why did I say that? I feel so stupid. They probably think that I'm such a loser. The feeling goes embarrassment, feeling insecure, and feeling that I'm not enough. And then going to not get distracted from the present moment. You get distracted from the present moment and are unable to focus on anything else, right? If we were to change that thought process and say, I'm human, and that means I will make mistakes. This is okay. And people don't care as much as I think they do. I'm confident and I'm unbothered. And my behavior is you're able to move on from ruminating and focus on what is important. We've all had a situation where we have said something and then spend the rest of the day thinking about, why did I say that? What did other people think about me? Now, again, it is a spiraling thought where we can think about being embarrassed, feeling insecure, feeling not enough continuously for the rest of the day. Or at some point, we have to realize the fact that, hey, okay, I need to understand the fact that I make mistakes too. You know how we as people are taught, be kind to others, be gracious of other people's mistakes. What I think we miss, and I think what there are a lot of theories that talk about this is we forget to teach people how to be kind to themselves, how to be gracious to themselves. And that's very important. I spent a lot of time with my toddler talking about, hey, do you think that was a kind behavior when they're doing something to somebody else? But then when they do something to hurt themselves as well, you have to ask, hey, was that kind? Because you have to be kind to yourself. We will easily forgive what other people do, but would we that easily forgive if we did the same thing to somebody else? So I think that's where a lot of the problems stem from, is not being kind enough to ourselves, not being gracious enough to our mistakes. And that's very important. You guys ever see people not being gracious enough or kind enough to themselves? Yeah. Anybody want to share? You don't have to.
I think as parents, we can be really compassionate to our children and forget to do the same to ourselves, because speaking for myself, mother guilt, and it was actually pointed out to me yesterday that I'm such a compassionate person when it comes to other people, but to remember to be compassionate to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lovely. This is a good double reminder.
Yes, exactly. It is hard to be compassionate to ourselves and forgive our mistakes. Definitely, yeah. Anybody else want to share? Don't feel obligated to. Just ask. Okay. So one of the big things, one of the core beliefs that kind of impact our feelings and behaviors are either our core beliefs or our intermediate beliefs. You know, the core beliefs are the center ideas about ourselves and the world. They're the most fundamental beliefs they have, and they're global, rigid, and overgeneralized. On the other hand, we have intermediate beliefs that consist of assumptions, attitudes, and rules. They're influenced by the development of core beliefs. For example, a dysfunctional core belief could be, I am unlovable, I'm inadequate, the world is a hostile and dangerous place. You know, this whole concept of, as a child, when you're consistently told you're not good enough to do something, or hey, you're not good enough at reading when compared to your friends, you're not at grade level, you're not reading at grade level, you're not reading at grade level, that consistent conversation can impact a person's idea about themselves. So an idea that could be, I am not enough, or I can never do this, I can never be good at reading, or I can never be good at math. And those are feeling statements, as we've talked about before, you know, fact or opinions. Those are opinion statements, but they are a part of your core beliefs. That is the first thing that comes out of you when a trigger hits you. When somebody says, you did this wrong, and their tone or their attitude or the way they say it, if it triggers a feeling, one of your core feelings sometimes gets impacted. Let me think for an example. For example, if I keep going back to cooking because I'm not doing much of it lately, but let's say I make something and somebody looks at it and goes, hey, you know, this is not good, I don't like it. It triggers something. It triggers an emotion of, well, I can't even cook properly or cook enough for my family. That triggers a lot of other emotions of feeling inadequate, or going back to being that kid in the classroom who's told, well, you're not doing this well, right? So it's very important that we understand or identify those core beliefs, those central ideas we have about ourselves and the world. Intermediate beliefs are mostly about, to be accepted, I should always please others. It's the people pleaser beliefs come from intermediate beliefs, right? If I am just nice to this one more person, maybe we'll be friends. If I buy other people things, maybe they'll be my friends. Or I should be excellent in everything that I do to be considered adequate. Everything that I have to do has to be perfect. The concept of perfectionism. It is best to have as little as possible to do with people. If I don't interact with people, I don't have to get hurt. I will not feel a rejection. So that entire concept of core beliefs and intermediate beliefs is just really important to identify. So what I'm going to suggest that we do is, you don't have to share, but I would suggest you write down some core beliefs that you have about yourself, or some core beliefs that you have about the world. I would suggest doing the same for intermediate beliefs, and we'll take about 2 minutes to kind of write both. Okay, so let's say, just to give you an example, one of the core beliefs I have is that at the age that my child is, the world is a dangerous place for her to be out by herself. She's 2, right? That's a core belief that I have that's developed over time. And it's very, very hard to manage that anxiety when you are working, when you're, at a mall, and all of a sudden your child just, you don't see your child. And one of the core beliefs that I have is, might have, is the fact that I'm just not good enough. That is a core belief that I could have. No matter what I do, I'm just not good enough. And all of that can impact your thoughts when you're just feeling not enough. You spiral down this, and then you keep thinking about that situation, and you stay here. And eventually we start to think, we have to start thinking about it in such a way that, hey, even though this might be true for the next 5 minutes, I have to reframe this, because I cannot spend my entire day distracted and not being able to focus on anything else. There are a lot of times when I tell my partner this, is the fact that I have this weird skill where I end up with my foot in my mouth almost every time. At some point, I used to feel really embarrassed, and I used to spend a lot of time overthinking about this. But then it helped me learn the fact that not everybody has that skill. Like, who can say that they can end up with their foot in their mouth almost every conversation that they have? So it's just important to remember the fact that not everything needs to be overthought, or not everything needs to be worried about. I mean, overthinking, worrying, these are all feelings or behaviors that we have. That doesn't mean the fact that we have to do it all the time. Sometimes you say stuff and you can't take it back. As somebody who works with future counselors who want to go out and become counselors one day, a lot of them talk about, hey, what if I say something wrong in front of my client? What do I do? Well, you figure out how to work around it, or you rephrase it, or you say it in a different way that it makes sense and doesn't sound wrong. It's not like everybody says everything right all the time. You know, we all make mistakes. Having that grace for yourself is really important. Here's another situation. You experienced a massive setback in your goals. So you think, hey, I'm a failure. I'm not cut out for this. I might as well stop trying. Feeling hurt, incompetent, discouraged, humiliated. Behavior, you withdraw, shut down, and give up. Or you can look at it from the other perspective of feeling at this one thing doesn't define my worth or my competence. I have my strengths that I focus on. You're hopeful, confident, worthy, competent. You feel your feelings, and then you push yourselves to try harder the next time and keep going. Same situation, two different thought processes. And I like how the reason I put this in there is because I like how the behavior says you feel your feelings. You let yourself feel the fact that, okay, I failed. You validate your own feeling and say, I failed. But that doesn't mean the fact that me failing at this one thing defines my worth and my competence. I just have to work harder the next time. I remember last week we talked about this, and I wanted to keep this slide up here just for everybody to look at. So what we're going to try and do this again. If you have this from last week, I would suggest you open it. If you don't have it from last week, we can definitely go ahead and do this again. So we're going to talk about behaviors that are in our control and things that are out of our control. So in our control, it's mostly things that we can do. You know, my self-talk, my energy, my thoughts, my boundary, my self-care, what I eat, my attitude, my actions, all of those are in my control. Our stress, our anxiety, our anger comes from things that are out of our control. Because if something is in my control, I'm going to do my best to fix it. But then there are things that are out of our control, you know, other people's behaviors, other people's actions, the media, the future, the past. All of these things are out of our control. So I would like you to think of certain situations or certain things that are out of your control, and they cause you negative feelings like anxiety, or unpleasant feelings like anxiety, or unpleasant feelings like anger. Again, normal feelings, but we're just going to talk about the situations that cause you those feelings. Sadness, guilt, that are out of your control. So I would suggest writing down 1, 2, or about 3 situations that are out of your control that can cause you unpleasant feelings. Okay, so we don't have to discuss things that are out of your control, but I would like you to, as we talk about the next couple of things that we do, I would like you to think about what are some things that you can do to control your feelings or control your behavior or control your thoughts when we get to that next step of coping skills. Okay, so let's talk about connecting thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We have kind of gone through these situations. You know, you have a situation, you have thought, feeling, and behavior. And let me specify this. We cannot turn around every situation. There's certain situations that'll happen that'll just be like, okay, I'm just going to wallow for the next hour. So not every situation we're going to be like, I'm just going to move forward through this. But there's times when we're going to work really hard to try to figure out, okay, how can we change our thought? How can we change our feeling? How can we change our behavior? Right? So the starting one is identifying coping skills. So let's say there's something that's completely out of my control. I made a mistake on a grant application and I've submitted it. And at this point, I really don't know what to do about it. Right? Like I made a mistake. I submitted it. It's completely out of my control. And now I'm sitting and I am overthinking it. Okay? And I really need to figure out what coping skill out of these 100 coping skills that are on the screen right now I can use to control my feelings. I'm personally at a point where I would look at my paper and say, oh, well, what can I do? And move on. But that to get to that stage, there was a lot of stages of crying, a lot of stages of being vulnerable, a lot of coping skills, and a lot of maybe I'm sure I can do something to fix it. So basically trying to bring it back into my control. So when you look at these coping skills, I would suggest you take 2 of these coping skills and match it to the out of my control situations that make you feel an unpleasant feeling. Does that make sense? Okay. It will take about a minute or so more before we. Okay, so let's talk about this. When we have situations that are out of our control, it's very hard to think about things that we can do to calm ourselves down. Let's say we're sitting in a car and I really don't know what to do. The other day, we were doing I think we were driving somewhere or somebody cut us off. And I remember my partner kind of getting angry about it. And my 2-year-old, she's never done it. I have taught her this all her life. She gets angry. We talk about, smelling a flower, blowing a candle to kind of teach her those coping skills. She looked at my husband and said, "Breathe, Dada, breathe." I'm like, okay, see, you know what I'm talking about. You just don't want to use it when you're pissed off at me. But take deep breaths is one of the things that you can do sitting in a car. Think about something funny is something you can do. Count to 100. Chew gum, or those are some things that you can sit and do in a car. There are some things that you can do when you're at home. You can, cook or bake or drink some tea or talk to a friend, talk to an adult. Anything to kind of help you calm down. Those are some things that you can do at home. It's just very important to understand the fact that when we have negative feelings, unpleasant feelings, coping skills can help us calm down. We all know what coping skills are. I think it's very important to identify what coping skill works for you. For example, some people practice yoga or meditation as a coping skill, while I know other people who get anxiety when they do yoga or they meditate, because that level of calmness is not possible for them. It is. So it's very important to practice those coping skills and learn those coping skills. Again, you will most likely use those coping skills 8 out of the 10 times when you're overthinking something, or 7 out of the 10 times, but that's still 70%. That's still 80%. Any kind of feeling that's unpleasant, anger, anxiety, sadness, these are all normal feelings, as we talked about last week. They're all normal feelings. We all have them. When they start to go an extreme level, is then at the point that we need to identify, okay, this is getting really worse. I really got to figure out how to calm myself down. And then you bring that back. So these coping skills, and I'm more than happy to share this slide or share the link that I got these coping skills from, because I got it from a website, and you can use those coping skills as well. One of the most common coping skill that I have used as a counselor for my clients is, identifying your emotion. What is causing this? What's the underlying emotion? And not journaling as such, but when you're having a negative day or a bad day, as we call it, we can write down what's going on in your head. The idea is not to, I'm going to sit at the end of the day and journal, because that does not work for some people. I know most people forget, it's hard, and it becomes stressful at some point. So what can be very helpful is whenever I'm having a negative thought or a negative feeling or a bad day, and going through those negative thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, I'm just going to take my phone out, I'm going to use the notepad, and I'm going to quickly type out what I'm feeling. The difference between doing that and keeping it in your head is I'm able to take it out of my head and put it on paper. So it's not just in my head anymore. I can look at it, I can read it, and I can tell you what that sounds like. An hour from now, maybe things are just going to get better. So it's just very important to take it out of your head and put it on something, and then you can definitely delete it when the feeling gets better if you're worried about other people reading it. I have done it in therapy where people have brought whatever they wrote down and we shred it together. So those are some really important things that you can do to, hey, I'm having these negative thoughts, negative feelings, it's impacting my behavior. Let's see how I can change this. There are a lot of different ways of doing that. One of them is a thought record or journal, where we talk about situations. Okay, this is the situation. My thought is, I've said hi to a friend, she just walked past me, right? My thought is, maybe they don't like me anymore. My emotion is I'm feeling rejected, I'm feeling sad. My behavior is I try to avoid the other person at all costs for the rest of the day. An alternative thought for that could be, hey, I said hi, but maybe they didn't see me. They seemed preoccupied with their thoughts. So maybe it just wasn't about me, but it was something that was going on with them. Maybe I can go check in on them. The other thing that I found, and this is something new that I found that I haven't really used before, but it's a coping skill lock. So let's say there's a situation, argument with a partner, right? And my thought is, I'm a failure in this relationship. I'm going to end up alone. And if anybody has a partner right now, and if you think about the amount of arguments you go through with a partner in 1 week, and if you continuously have those kind of thoughts, it can be very debilitating. The constant fear of, this relationship is going to end, I'm a failure in this relationship, that constant fear is not really emotionally healthy for people. So you write down, okay, I had an argument with my partner. At this point, I feel I'm a failure in this relationship. I'm going to end up alone. Emotion and their intensity, which is really important, right? So you take their emotion, says, I feel shame, and which is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, I'm at a 9. and sadness on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. I'm at a 6. So I go ahead, and one of my coping skills is to take my phone out and write all my feelings out about that argument on a piece of paper, or on my phone, or on my thought journal, or whatever I want to use to write everything down. Once I have done that, the result of that could be my mood is improved. And I realize the fact that I don't have to believe every thought. And that it changes the intensity level of my emotion. Again, shame and sadness are very normal emotions we feel. The idea is the intensity of that emotion and how that is impacting us. It's just really important to kind of think about these things when we are going about our day, right? So our actions or our behavior would be a consequence of everything that's happening. Our thoughts, as we talked about before, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all connected. And we have to figure out how to, 80% of the time, not 100%, 60, 70, whatever works for you to start at, to say 60% of the time I'm going to try and change my thought to see if that can be changed, and see what that looks like for you. See how that impacts your feelings, how that impacts your behavior. And then these coping skills, the thought record, the coping skill log is all that you can do to manage your negative thoughts or negative feelings. One of the really important things that we can do is you can identify the triggers that we identified in the last session. Whatever triggers you, you can connect those with a coping skill. So like one of my triggers is when I feel disrespected, it just makes me really angry. It doesn't give me anxiety. It doesn't give me when I feel disrespected. It doesn't mean whether the other person meant it or not. When I feel disrespected, it makes me feel angry. So what are some things that I could do when I feel disrespected to calm down before I react? So I could count to 100, or just walk away from the situation for a little bit before I come back to it. And I've done that before. When I have felt disrespected, I've said, hey, I just need 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes and we can talk about this. So that gives me time to process my thoughts, process my feelings, process my emotions, and say, okay, this is what I can say. This is what I should not say. And these are things that I'm going to say. So kind of put my thoughts together as to what's the best way to move forward next. So any trigger that you can identify for yourself that gives you unpleasant feelings. You know, these coping skills can also be helpful when we are overexcited and we don't know how to calm down. So they're not just about negative feelings, but they are about unpleasant feelings, but they're also about pleasant feelings where we don't know how to calm down. A lot of time kiddos come into counseling because they get overexcited, and that impacts what they do. So they get overexcited, they forget about personal space, they push something, they hit something, and that gets them into trouble. So kind of you feel so overexcited, I don't know how to calm down. So then you go to one of your coping skills to calm down. So it's really important to identify coping skills and have them in your imaginary toolbox to take out whenever possible. And like I said last time, you can always get counseling and talk to someone and say, hey, I'm having these problems. How can I get help? So yeah, these are my references, and I'm going to stop sharing. I didn't want to like put people on the spot and be like, "Oh, you shared and you share." So I just, because we were talking about very specific things today, so I didn't want to put people on the spot. But any questions?
That was great. Thank you. I think the only coping strategy that I thought that was missing for adults was, can you have a glass of wine?
Oh, yeah.
Or is that leaning towards dependence on substances to relax yourself? Because that whole list, I looked at that for ages.
I wouldn't say that's about dependence. No. I mean, I wouldn't tell people go drink a glass of wine, technically. Liability reasons. But, you know, if that is something that works, that is something that works. There are times when somebody, I might know them, who might have had wine from a bottle because of the day that they've been stressing about. You know, it's a hard day. Just important to remember the fact that we figured out our own coping skills. Any other questions?
I think that's been. Oh, you go, Nikki.
Yeah, I don't have a question. Of course, I've just got something to add. I really liked doing that exercise because it just makes it really clear that the things out of our control can sometimes be so macro, and they make you feel really stuck. You know, that you really can't influence them. So I loved doing that exercise to see what I can do to move me past that. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. It's just very important that I think when we are in the moment, when things are like stressful for us and we're in the moment, it's very hard to remember them. So that's why it's important to write them down and have them somewhere so that you can be like, hey, you know, this is what's going on. Maybe I can go back and reference to that and just think about it. And that can be very helpful. Any comments?
I think this is a great start to our Minds Matters program. Malvika, thank you for helping us kickstart it again. Anytime.
I'm more than happy to do this again if we need to. But I think our 3-part series should help people know that, hey, I know techniques matter, but your mental health matters too. So.
Anyone else have any questions for Malvika? Are you, Malvika, happy for us to share your email? So if anyone's got any questions that they'd like to ask you separately, that they can do that?
Yes. I'll put it in the chat. Sarah, did you have a question?
I did actually. Did you have any sort of good or recommended sort of templates for some of those, sort of putting it sort of down on paper, or like for say scenarios and you just want to go and sort of workshop it in your like 5 minutes?
You could. So I use this website. It's called therapistaid.com. And it has almost everything I ever need. All the worksheets that were on my presentation came from there.
Okay.
So you can definitely find something there. You can find 3 things there and combine them into one. But it's a very good website as a resource if you want to either work on, you know, thought records or something like that. It can be very helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any mindfulness tools that you could recommend? I use Insight Timer, but are there other ones that might help?
Yeah, there's this, I know about this app. I'm not a very mindful person. I am that person who gets anxiety from yoga and meditation. Like, I did yoga for 3 months straight and had an anxiety attack at the end of every session because I couldn't be that calm and I couldn't recognize the fact that why I was getting so anxious. But I know there's this app, it's called Calm, C-A-L-M, and that has really good tools that you could use. There is this book. Is it? I can't remember the book name. I'll share it with you, but I think it's a book on mindfulness. And I'm looking for it and I can't find it. But the book specifically talks about how when people who are who like to use mindfulness and for those people who mindfulness works, it provides different techniques that they can use. So I will look for it and I will share that with you. Is it this one? Let's see. I think it's Cure. C-U-R-E. Maybe it's that. I'll look for it. I think it's that one, but maybe I'm wrong. I will look for it. There's also Neil Alexander Passay. He has a really good book on dyslexia and mental health, and I'm halfway through that book, and it's a very good book for people to read. So yeah. Now, if I don't remember the book's name, it's just going to keep going in my head. But I'll find it. I'll find it at some point. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Malvika, again,
Anytime.
for helping us with this series. If anyone's got any questions, you can email Malvika or myself, and we will keep you up to date with our next one coming out in July, for the month of July, on burnout. Big topic to cover.
Definitely.
And our partners at ADHD Australia are going to help support that one as well. So that will be exciting.
Yay.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I'm okay.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Mark, for joining. Mac, my mistakes.
Thank you very much.
There. The writing's so tiny too. Thank you. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.